I can finally get rid of a loser like you, she sneered. You're nothing but incompetent trash. You're fired. I stood there helplessly as my boss twisted her beauty into something cruel, laughing as she dismissed me. My name is Michael, and I work for a subcontracting company affiliated with a publishing house struggling through another grueling schedule. These days, I no longer face hospitalizations, but as a child, I was plagued by frequent asthma attacks. I couldn't part with my inhaler, and at night, I'd prop up pillows and pretend to sleep to manage the endless coughing and breathing difficulties. There was no rest for me, and I would plaintively tell my mom, "Mom, it's too hard to sleep," despite knowing it was just another attack. My mom would patiently stay by my side, saying, "That's okay, Michael. I'll read you a book until you can fall asleep." She'd pull out various books from my dad's study, old picture books, encyclopedias about animals and space, and sometimes novels that were far too advanced for a grade schooler. Despite the suffering of those sleepless nights, I excelled in other subjects, thanks to her efforts. My dad, an avid book collector, would listen eagerly to my book reviews. "Michael, you're quite the critic for an elementary schooler. If you like Mark Twain, you should try Ernest Hemingway," he'd suggest. "But Ernest Hemingway's books are long," I'd respond. "Well, maybe by the time you're in middle school," he'd say with a smile. "I'm looking forward to it." My dad passed away from pancreatic cancer when I was in 6th grade. By the time we realized how serious it was already too late. Life became much harder after his death, and I spent the next 3 years of middle school watching my mom work tirelessly every day. I told her, "I want to work after middle school." She replied, "Don't be silly. You're smart like your dad. I'll make sure you can go to college." Still, not wanting to be a burden, we agreed that I would work after high school. During those challenging years, we decided to sell most of Dad's books. It was heartbreaking to see the empty bookshelves, but letting go of the books didn't erase the memories I had of my parents. In high school, I worked part-time jobs nonstop to support my mom. I was proud to buy my own phone with my earnings, but my inherited love for books from my dad always tugged at me. I'd often find myself wanting to buy new releases at the bookstore, but hardcover novels were too expensive for a high school student with just an allowance. So I'd reserve them at the local library. Waiting for new releases was a small price to pay for reading for free. One day, during one of my regular library trips between work shifts, I noticed a man who was always there at the same time, reading the newspaper in the same spot. He dressed casually but had an air of neatness about him, with his crisply ironed slacks. He looked to be about the age my dad would be if he were still alive. Our eyes met once when I glanced at him. He was a friendly man and struck up a conversation with me. "You come here often, don't you? Borrow any new books?" he asked with a friendly smile. "Yeah," I replied. "You're always reading the newspaper. Don't you read books?" He explained that his morning routine involved reading the newspaper first, followed by a novel. Not many kids at my school read print media, and my mom's busy schedule meant we often missed each other. I was thrilled to finally meet someone who shared my love of reading. He was surprised to learn I was still in high school. "You're quite mature and quick-witted. I'm impressed. Aren't you a bit young to be reading that book?" he remarked. It turned out he had already checked out the new mystery novel I had just borrowed and was excited to discuss it with me. "It's super interesting. It's by a new author, but I bet it'll win an award," he said. Our conversations brought back memories of my dad, and he seemed to genuinely enjoy our book talks, treating me like a younger friend with a shared passion. This continued throughout my high school years. Back then, I dreamed of working at a prestigious publishing house. However, job hunting proved challenging. The big publishing houses I admired favored candidates with impressive educational backgrounds or exceptional mid-career experience. With no savings to afford college, I sent out countless resumes, pouring my passion into each one, only to face repeated rejections. It felt like a personal blow, frustrating and disheartening. I want to be an editor, to support authors and help bring exciting new works into the world. But reality was harsh. Sometimes, passion alone isn't enough. Eventually, I expanded my job search and met Thomas, the CEO of my current company. It's a small subcontracting firm where even the CEO gets involved in interviews. Despite his high position, Thomas was surprisingly humble and compassionate. After hearing about my numerous rejections, he offered me a trial period with the promise of a full-time position if things went well. It wasn't exactly my dream job, but the steady salary helped ease our family's financial strain. With less pressure on Mom, she even managed to put on a little weight. Thomas occasionally brings snacks to the office to engage with employees. One day, he asked, Michael, how are you settling in? Our print shop is small and busy, right? No way, I love it. I've always wanted to work with books, I replied enthusiastically. A colleague often praised me, saying, Michael is really doing a great job. His work is meticulous, and it's nice to have a good kid like him around. Thomas seemed pleased with how things were going. Although the job was physically and mentally demanding, all my colleagues were kind, and I felt fortunate to be in such a supportive environment. Little did I know, changes were on the horizon. 4 years into my tenure, Thomas introduced us to someone new, his daughter, Rachel. She was a striking presence in a navy blouse and a lace pencil skirt, looking every bit the capable professional. Freshly graduated from college, she was about to join the team. I might sound like a doting father, but she's my daughter. I'm confident she'll do great here too. However, don't hold back just because she's the boss's daughter. Please be welcoming, Thomas said. Rachel bowed gracefully and said, I look forward to learning from all of you. She quickly adapted to the work and began delivering results far ahead of schedule, which rapidly boosted her performance. My colleagues joked, she's really good at her job. At this rate, she'll surpass us soon. And sure enough, she was promoted to manager in no time. Once Rachel became a manager, Thomas seemed completely reassured and stopped coming to the workplace. That's when Rachel's true nature began to show. She would sometimes scold her subordinates, saying, Why are the deadlines always late? Don't tell me you're slacking off under the guise of external meetings. Other times, she would harshly criticize, Who made this estimate? I'll redo it. If you can't handle it, don't take on unnecessary work. The atmosphere at work grew progressively worse. One by one, my colleagues who had fought alongside me for 4 years left, and soon, I was the only one left who remembered Rachel from her early days. The team had entirely changed. They were all kind-hearted and diligent people who deserved better treatment. I went to work each day, trying my best to hide the gloominess I felt inside. One day, Rachel commented, You look so gloomy. You're bringing down the mood. From then on, I desperately tried to stay on her good side, fearing I'd become a target of her bullying. Clients began to worry, asking, Michael, are you okay? You seem to have lost a lot of weight, and giving me puzzled looks as the number of accounts I managed suddenly dropped. The workload, already heavy, began to take an even greater toll on both me and Rachel. Despite the departures, the work didn't lessen. Determined to keep Rachel out of my mind, I threw myself into my work and eventually reached the top in sales performance. One day, as I was dragging my exhausted body home, Rachel called me into her office. Michael, can I have a word with you? I was nervous. Had I made a mistake at work? I'd been so careful not to upset her lately that I couldn't think of any reason for this meeting. With a growing sense of unease, I went to see her, only to be met with, I wouldn't mind dating you. To my astonishment, Rachel confessed her feelings to me. I was at a loss for words. I'm willing to date you. You're always looking at me and talking to me more than any other employee. I thought maybe it's time I reciprocated your attention. My interactions with her were motivated by a desire to keep the peace, not because I had any romantic interest. Did she really not realize how much her subordinates feared her? If you date me, even someone with a low educational background, like you could climb up the career ladder. Aren't you lucky? I heard about your struggles coming from a single-parent household and how you barely got into this company thanks to my father's kindness. On the other hand, I became a manager soon after joining. Honestly, someone like me is too good for you, Rachel said. I was stunned by her words. It seemed like she was playing hard to get, but I found her anything but appealing. I firmly declined, saying, When did I ever say I liked you? Well, that's the impression you gave with your behavior, she replied. I just want to get along with everyone at work as colleagues. I've never seen you as a romantic interest. Sorry if I gave you the wrong idea, I explained. Rachel was visibly shocked by my rejection. It's awkward to reject someone you don't like anyway. See you at work tomorrow, I added, hurrying out of the office to escape the uncomfortable situation. From the following day, Rachel's harassment escalated. When I returned from an outside meeting, I found my desk completely soaked and the fabric of my chair stained. It was hot outside, wasn't it? I made it cooler for you, she said mockingly. Really? Was she acting like a high school bully? Another time, the estimate I had painstakingly completed was missing from my computer, and the magazine sample we were supposed to deliver was found shredded. Although I suspected Rachel was behind it, I had no proof. I stayed up all night to redo the work and managed to deliver it just in time. So, you finally delivered. Incompetent people really have it tough. Be sure to thank the lenient client, she taunted insincerely. Additionally, she continually piled on overtime work, saying, since you can't do your job like others can, you'll have to work a bit more. You're stealing his salary, aren't you? It was clear that since the day of her confession, I had become her target for harassment. Ironically, her treatment of other employees seemed to improve somewhat, with her praising their work and saying, good job, I'll take it from here. Believing that my sacrifice was protecting my juniors, as my former colleagues had asked, made the situation somewhat more bearable. However, the office girls, still intimidated by Rachel's past behavior, flinched even at normal words of encouragement. One of them bowed apologetically and quickly left the room. Rachel clicked her tongue in disapproval, clearly displeased. Whether underperforming or overperforming, I was always met with her sarcasm, and the overall sales performance began to decline. Even if Rachel and I performed well, it wouldn't be enough to sustain the company. I started to wonder if it was time to report her behavior to the CEO. Then, an even bigger problem emerged. Our printing company had two major clients, the major women's magazine, Apple Sapling Publishing, and the prestigious William Bucker, known for its serious publications. I received an irate call from Apple Sapling, demanding the magazine we were supposed to receive still hasn't arrived. Put Michael on the phone. Somehow, I was listed as the person responsible. I had no recollection of being assigned this task, but under their insistence, I had to apologize. I apologized profusely for a mistake I wasn't even aware of, trying to smooth things over as best as I could. The atmosphere in the workplace grew progressively worse. One by one, my colleagues who had fought alongside me for 4 years left, and before long, I was the only one who had seen Rachel from her early days. The team had changed entirely. They were all kind-hearted and diligent individuals who deserved better treatment. Each day, I went to work, doing my best to mask the gloominess I felt inside. Rachel eventually noticed, saying, you look so gloomy. You're bringing down the mood. Since then, I've desperately tried to stay on her good side to avoid becoming a target of her bullying. Clients began to express concern, asking, Michael, are you okay? You seem to have lost a lot of weight, and giving me puzzled looks when they noticed a sudden decrease in the number of accounts I managed. The workload, already heavy, began to bear down on both Rachel and me. Even as people left, the work didn't diminish. Determined to keep Rachel out of my mind, I worked with intense focus and finally achieved top sales performance. One day, as I was dragging my exhausted body home, Rachel called me in. Michael, can I have a word with you? What could this be about? Had I made a mistake at work? I had been so careful not to upset Rachel lately. With a sense of unease, I went to see her, only to hear, I wouldn't mind dating you. Incredibly, Rachel was confessing her feelings. I was baffled. I'm willing to date you. You're always looking at me and you talk to me more than any other employee. I thought maybe it's time I reciprocated. Her attention was more about keeping the peace than any genuine interest. I had been trying to avoid conflict, not pursue a relationship. Was she not aware of how much her juniors feared her? If you date me, even someone with a low educational background like you could climb up the career ladder. Aren't you lucky? I know about your struggles in a single-parent household and how you barely got into this company thanks to my father's kindness. Meanwhile, I became a manager soon after joining an elite. Honestly, someone like me is too good for you, Rachel said. I was stunned by her presumption. I thought she might be playing hard to get, but I found her anything but attractive. I firmly declined. Rachel, when did I ever say I liked you? Well, that's the impression you gave with your behavior, she replied. I just want to get along with everyone at work as colleagues. I've never seen you as a romantic interest. Sorry if I gave you the wrong idea, I said. Rachel seemed frozen, clearly not expecting rejection. It's awkward to turn down someone you don't like anyway. See you at work tomorrow, I added, hurrying out of the office to escape the awkwardness. The next day marked the beginning of Rachel's excessive harassment. Upon returning from an outside meeting, I found my desk completely soaked in water, and the fabric of my chair was stained. It was hot outside, wasn't it? I made it cooler for you, she said. Really, was she acting like a high school girl? On another occasion, the estimate I had meticulously completed was missing from my computer, and the magazine sample we were supposed to deliver was found in the shredder. I suspected Rachel was behind it. but there was no proof. I stayed up all night finishing the work and managed to deliver everything just in time. Rachel's behavior only intensified after my rejection. Her taunts and constant piling on of work took a toll on me. When she said, "So you finally delivered," incompetent people really have it tough. Be sure to thank the lenient client. It felt like a mockery of my efforts. She also kept piling on overtime, insisting, "Since you can't do your job like others, work a bit more. You're stealing the salary, aren't you?" Rachel's behavior clearly made me her target for harassment. Despite this, her treatment of other employees seemed to improve somewhat, as she started to offer them more positive reinforcement. I tried to find solace in the fact that my suffering might be protecting my juniors, just as my departing colleagues had hoped. Yet even the simplest words of encouragement seemed to make the office girls flinch, revealing the lasting impact of Rachel's previous behavior. One of them even bowed apologetically and left the room, which only made Rachel click her tongue in disdain. Despite the drop in overall sales performance and my continual exposure to sarcasm, I wasn't sure if I should report Rachel to the CEO. Her presence was stifling, but I wasn't sure if the CEO would take my concerns seriously. Then came an even bigger blow. Our company had two major clients, Apple Sapling Publishing, a major women's magazine, and William Bucker, known for its serious publications. One day, I received a furious call from Apple Sapling. "The magazine we were supposed to receive still hasn't arrived. Put Michael on the phone." I was listed as the responsible person for this task, but I had no recollection of being assigned it. Nevertheless, I had to apologize profusely for what I didn't remember doing. The response was harsh and final. "We will not be doing any business with your company in the future." Losing such a significant client was a devastating blow to our company, and it only added to the mounting pressure I felt from both Rachel and the situation. How did things end up like this? Feeling hollow, I was heading back to my desk when Rachel intercepted me. Her usually attractive demeanor was now twisted into a malicious smile. "You've really messed up this time, haven't you? Ruining such a major contract. You're clearly not cut out for this company." "I don't understand," I replied, trying to grasp the situation. Rachel's satisfaction was palpable. "There's no place for you here anymore," she said, her tone dripping with malice. It was clear now. Rachel had orchestrated this mess to frame me, but without any proof, I couldn't confront her about it. She was relishing the opportunity to finally get rid of me. "I'm delighted to fire someone like you. Incompetent trash like you is out of here," she declared. "I'm sorry, Thomas. I was just too exhausted and disheartened to continue. I decided to resign." After submitting my resignation, I took some time to relax at home for the first time in a while. My mom noticed my weight loss and kept urging me to eat more, though I had to be mindful not to gain too much. She had used the money I sent to restore my father's book collection, and the bookshelves were once again filled with lively volumes. Reading in my dad's chair during the day felt like a rare luxury. The Ernest Hemingway novels, which seemed daunting in elementary school, now resonated with a new depth. One day, I received a call from an unknown number. I initially ignored it, assuming it was a scam. However, the calls continued daily, so I eventually answered. It was Rachel. "You finally picked up," Rachel said, her voice weary even over the phone. She explained that the chairman of the last major contract we had threatened to sever ties if I didn't return. If we lost that contract, the company would face bankruptcy, so she needed me to come back. "Who are you, Michael? I had no idea you had such connections with major clients." I was puzzled myself. Though I was reluctant to return to the company I had left, I hadn't properly said goodbye to Thomas and my juniors. So, with some gifts in hand, I agreed to come back. After greeting my juniors, I headed to the reception room where I found Thomas, Rachel, and to my surprise, an old man from my high school days. "Michael, this is Chairman William," Thomas introduced, "the chairman of William B2, who we rely on heavily. It seems you know each other." William, now a chairman, greeted me with his usual cheerfulness. "It's been a while, hasn't it, Michael? I think it's been 5 years since we last saw each other." "You're looking well," I replied. "I had no idea you were the chairman of William B2. "Well, I never mentioned it," William said with a smile. "I just wanted to be friends with you as a fellow book lover. As you grow older and your circle narrows, it's hard to make new friends." Rachel looked stunned by the easy familiarity between me and the chairman. "How does someone like you know William?" she seemed to be wondering. Thomas joined the conversation, his tone serious. "Michael, as Rachel mentioned, William values you greatly. He even threatened to end the contract if you were the point of contact. Would you consider coming back to our company? We really need you, he said, bowing his head in earnest. William also asked why I had left suddenly. I wondered if Thomas was unaware of Rachel's actions. I'm flattered by your offer, I replied, but did anyone tell you I resigned? Rachel said it was for personal reasons. Your mother is unwell, right? I understand it's a difficult time, but what do you think? It's all fabricated, I said, my sense of obligation evaporating. The real reason I resigned was because I couldn't tolerate Rachel's misconduct. Rachel, I said, turning to her, I still can't forgive you for what you did. But I remember how hard you worked as a newcomer and how you quickly rose to a managerial position. You were indeed talented. I wish I could have helped you improve back then. It's too late now, but I really wanted to be closer to you. Rachel, overwhelmed, started to cry. After calming down, she admitted all her wrongdoings and offered a heartfelt apology. I'm truly sorry for everything I've done. Honestly, I